What the fuck? The most anticipated pop punk album of the year is finally here. Let's talk about the Story So Far's new album, I Want to Disappear. Hey everyone, it's Michael, welcome back. Before I dive into the album, I wanted to give a big thank you to Pure Noise and Big Picture for sending over the album early. If you like pop punk, I think you're pretty aware of The Story So Far, but just in case you're not, The Story So Far are one of the biggest pop punk bands today. They started out in the 2010s pop punk revival, and they really stood out in the scene with their unique, aggressive style of pop punk. I was in high school when Under Soil and Dirt came out, so I feel like I was the perfect age for that album, and pretty much the perfect age for everything else the band did after. During the entire band's run, The Story So Far were extremely consistent in giving us fast, upbeat pop punk songs that would have us furiously pointing our fingers back at the band while we sing along. The band's first 3 albums are all pop punk classics. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. It really wasn't until Proper Dose where fans weren't really fully behind the band. And look, we've had Proper Dose for years now, and I don't really understand the backlash that album got. It wasn't like The Story So Far on Proper Dose were so far away from what they did on their older albums. It was still a pop punk album, it was still a rock album, whatever you want to call it. It was still The Story So Far. The one big question I see about this album online is it a pop punk album? And to answer that question right away, yes. Yes, it is. Before I dive into the album, I wanted to talk about an interview that Parker Cannon, the lead singer of The Story So Far, did with Rolling Stone. I think the interview gives us great insight into what Parker and the band were thinking going into the album. The article is behind a paywall, so I'm not going to share exact quotes, but it's a very good interview, and I'm going to have the entire thing linked in the description. Parker talked about how this album is about grief and how that was fresh in his mind after his father unfortunately passed away from a battle with throat cancer. Parker also talked about how the band almost broke up because he felt like The Story So Far accomplished everything that he set out to do with the band, but he decided against it and decided to keep going with the band and write this album to honor his father. So knowing what this album is about, you might think the entire album is slow, maybe it's a lot of acoustic songs, a lot of slow, quiet moments, but no, this album is as fast and as intense as any other Story So Far album. To make it as clear as possible, there's 10 songs on this album. 8 of them are fast, intense pop-punk songs, and the last 2 are slower, kind of acoustic-type songs. So, again, I know a lot of people had questions after Proper Dose what this new album is going to sound like. Is it going to be even more, like, kind of rock-influenced, straying farther away from pop-punk? But, again, to make it as clear as possible, this is a pop-punk album. The album starts off with All This Time, and I know this is a song we've had for a while, and honestly, at this point, after listening to the song, for all the time that we've had it, listening to it in the context of the entire album, I think this is a top 5 The Story So Far song. I remember when I did my video about All This Time, a lot of us were thinking, oh, based on the ending of that song, it's going to lead right into another fast-paced, energetic pop-punk song. And it does with track 2, Watch You Go. And if you've been listening to all the singles that have come out, this obviously is the first new song that you're going to hear from the band. And again, for the last time, if you had any questions about whether this album was going to be filled with a bunch of high-energy pop-punk songs, Watch You Go, which is track 2 on the album, should answer that question. You guys know I love talking about lyrics, and the lyrics on this album are beautiful, they're emotional, they're intense. I think some of the best songs, some of the best lyrics that the band has ever written are on this album, so as we go through, I'm going to highlight some of the lyrics that stood out to me. So this is from Watch You Go. I'm still concealing the way that I'm feeling, and my way of healing may never be enough. I'm going to jump around on the album here. I think Nothing to Say is probably my favorite song on the album, and I may be reading too much into this, and I might be like nerding out or geeking out a little bit, but I think some of the lyrics on this song reference some of the Story So Far's older songs. And I still want to talk, but there's nothing to say. That made me think of All I Really Want Is to Stay Right Here, Right Now. There's so much more to talk about from What You Don't See. Will you guide me if I fall? How can I believe you're there if I don't feel you at all? That made me think of If I Fall from Proper Dose. Again, I might be reading into it a little bit much, but I'm a sucker anytime a band references their older songs in their lyrics. These are some more lyrics that stood out to me. I just want to feel better, easier said than done, none of this matters, without him it's not any fun, my whole life shattered, when I got that call, I was numb. Keep You Around is a beautiful song, and I know that using the word beautiful might be kind of weird if we're talking about an album that is full of songs that deal with grief, but the way that I've always looked at it is, Parker and the band using this kind of like a therapy session, but the songs and the album are also a celebration of life. And I could read the entire song to you because I think the lyrics on this song are so good, but I'll just read the first verse. I'll get up and help with the yard work. I let the outside noises always pull me under. And if I take some time to cry and just recover, then maybe I can be there for my mother. And all those times are crystal clear, and it feels so safe to disappear. That opening guitar riff on You're Still in My Way, I think are going to unlock a lot of core memories of the under soil and dirt sound of the story so far. The album ends with 2 slower songs, the first being White Shores, and I love the guitar part that comes in kind of at the middle and repeats at the end of the song. It's so catchy and just gets stuck in your head. The album ends with I Want to Disappear, and it does what a last song should. It wraps up the entire album. It is an acoustic song, and I know longtime fans of the band love when the stories so far, make acoustic songs because there's so few in the entire band's catalog, and I think this is going to be another fan favorite. After all the emotion that's on this album, the last lyrics on the album are, Now I'm sure that I love you. One thing that does carry over from Proper Dose to the new album is this kind of vocal effect, or whether it's just an effect that's on the entire song. It's kind of hard for me to describe, but when you listen to the new album, you're going to say, oh yeah, this sounds like Proper Dose, and that kind of a effect, I guess is the best way to describe it, does carry over from Proper Dose to the new album. Grief is obviously such a powerful and heavy topic, but as fans of pop punk, emo, punk rock, hardcore metal, you know what I mean. We're so used to bands not being afraid to dive into those topics and have these really emotional songs. I don't know, I've just been thinking about the interesting to me, the relationship that the scene has with this really heavy and emotional music. And I don't even know if I have the right words to spit it out now, but for really lack of a better word, that bands can write these sad songs and the fans can kind of take them and digest them and really use them as a positive to help them through, whatever they're going through when they're listening to these songs. And it's this weird thing because fans can take these songs and help them to move forward, but these songs are so emotional and so intense, and I'm not saying that other genres of music don't have emotion in them, because obviously they do, but no other genre or genres of music are so synonymous with sadness, grief, or emotion as, emo or punk rock or pop punk, metal, hardcore, all of these genres of music that are so, closely tied together, especially in pop culture. And, as I was listening to the album and everything, it was just this thing that kept popping in my head, and I'm not sure even if I'm doing a good job of articulating what I mean, but it's just this interesting, unique relationship that I think the scene has with these type of songs. And it's this weird, beautiful relationship that we have with these songs and with these bands, because as I've been listening to the album over and over again because I like it so much, but, I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about my parents while I'm listening to the songs, or I didn't think about people that I've lost when I've been listening to the album. And grief is such a unique thing because it's something that we're all going to experience it at one point in our lives. And it's such an unfortunate thing, but also such a unique thing because it's this kind of shared experience that we all have. And if this music can help someone in any way with that, I think it's a beautiful thing. I wasn't sure if I was going to make this comparison, and I don't even know if I'm going to leave it in the video. I might just edit it out, but I remember listening to Touche Amore's Stage 4 and being, just absolutely blown away by the raw emotion, the aggressiveness, the poetry that the band was putting into all these songs. And I think after listening to I Want to Disappear, I think both of these albums are kind of in the same sphere, but I Want to Disappear is just immediately more catchy, more easy to digest, because at face value, pop punk, that's what pop punk is. It's, immediately more catchy and just easy to kind of take in and sing along to. It stays in your head a little bit more easier than, a hardcore punk song might. And for the story so far to make an album that is so emotional, but also so catchy, so easy to kind of take in and to digest, I think that's something that the band, really should get a lot of credit for, because I think they do it so well. And even if you don't want to pay attention to the lyrics, because I know a lot of people, just want to go to music for an escape and they don't want to dive into the lyrics, as strange as that might sound, because, I've talked about the lyrics and what this album is about so much in this video, but I think you can even enjoy this album if you just want to go in and kind of turn your brain off, and you can still enjoy it. And for the story so far to kind of make the album work on both levels, you can read into everything and get, so much positivity from the songs, and you can listen to it and just kind of sing along if that's what you want. So for the story so far to kind of accomplish both of those things, I think is pretty amazing and very impressive. If you were worried at all that the story so far didn't have that intensity that they once had, don't. This album solidifies the band as one of the best pop punk bands in the last, 10, 15 years, and I think we need to start talking about the story so far as one of the best pop punk bands of all time. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about the new album in the comments below. Please like the video. It really helps me out, really helps the channel out. Please share the video, subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for watching.